10 years. 10 years is a long time. A lot can change in 10 years. To be honest, I've been sitting here for over an hour now, and I don't know how to start this script, so I guess I'll just start. Today is not exactly a pleasant day for me. I'm hopefully scheduling this video to come out on the 8th of August at around 8 PM my time, so hopefully that will make it on the 8th of August in most places. This was the day, 10 years ago. I still remember it vividly. I was due to start a new job, literally on this exact day. I woke up early, had breakfast, I was dressed and ready to go. Then Dad came out from his room. He didn't have to speak. His presence already told me everything I knew what had happened before he even reached the end of the hallway, let alone opened his mouth. "She's gone," he said. He was referring to my mum. She had finally lost her battle. At least she was no longer in pain. Mum was born over in England to a family of 4 kids, becoming the 5th, last and youngest of the lot. The family flew to Australia when Mum was just 6 years old. She had 1 sister and 3 brothers, who constantly teased and picked on her. One day, the 2 younger brothers confronted her, and she walloped them both soundly. They learned to never pick a fight with her again after that. Mum grew up to be resilient, yet kind-hearted, traits that served her very well. She gave birth to my sister, and then gave birth to me. She became the decision-maker, the rationalizer, and the peacekeeper in our household. Mum eventually became a nurse, working in a local hospital. A perfect job, I think, for someone who cares about people so much. Little did she know that it would change almost everything and alter her course in life substantially. Mum was working one day, and was with another nurse, pushing a tea trolley for the hospital's patients. They wandered over to an elevator, and Mum pushed a button to call it. Facing away from the elevator, she heard the doors open. Without thinking to check, she stepped backwards and inside. Inside an elevator that wasn't there. The doors had opened, but had malfunctioned. The elevator had stopped either at or midway between the floor below, and Mum fell down onto the top of it, about 3 or 4 meters down. It was lucky the other nurse was nearby. They were able to not only prevent the tea trolley from falling down on top of her, but could also steady whatever was on the trolley and also quickly raise the alarm to halt the elevator from being called again. Poor Mum had landed awkwardly on her knee when she fell, and it would be about 4 or 5 hours before she was finally able to be lifted up and rescued. Well, I suppose if you're going to have an accident, the best place is in a hospital, isn't it? Mum never truly recovered from her ordeal, I'm sorry to say. It was wheelchairs for a little while, then crutches for years, and whenever her knee flared up. She had to have surgery on it shortly after the fall, but somehow the surgery was botched, and she had to have another surgery, which also didn't work out very well. Additionally, she became almost traumatized of elevators afterwards. Though now she didn't have a choice to use them, she struggled greatly with stairs forever afterwards. She was often quick to comment she didn't like stepping in elevators. Mum would also go on and injure her opposite foot too. A young golden retriever puppy, Claire, dug a single hole in the soon-to-be courtyard and Mum stepped in it, catching herself off balance and hurting her ankle. She was scooting around on an office chair when she was at home for a week or 2 afterwards. I think I might have inherited a clumsiness and strange ability of being accident-prone. Mum always cared about us a lot. When I had the surgery to remove my appendix, the only time Mum left my side was when I actually went in for the surgery itself. She stayed at the hospital otherwise until I left the next day, even spending the night in a rather uncomfortable chair. But she did it because I was afraid, and she always knew when I became horribly anxious about something. Mum was somewhat not so encouraging of video games, at least at first. Video games could only be played on Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays, not during the week or on school nights. That doesn't mean she completely disliked them altogether. She was always down for a game of Mario Party or Mario Kart when challenged. As the years went on, Mum got a job in entering medical records. Her arms began to have issues next. First, she developed carpal tunnel in her right wrist, and then the left soon followed. They became particularly painful at times, and it led to her not being able to play video games quite so often. A while later, I think perhaps when the option for surgery came up, her doctor asked what one thing was that she wanted to do but her carpal tunnel prevented. Without skipping a beat, she said straight away, to play video games with my son. When she told me that, it was such a touching moment for me. It makes that final game of Mario Party even more special. She absolutely blitzed everyone in it, and let me tell you, she was more than happy to rub my face in it whenever she did get the better of me in video games. It's also because of Mum that I was introduced to Thomas the Tank Engine. She told me how she would put a tape of Thomas on for me to watch to get me out of her way whilst she was cooking. I watched those tapes until they became completely disheveled in the VHS machine, and at least one of them resulted in us needing a new machine altogether. Oops. I used to build large Tomy Train or Plarail layouts in the family room, right up until it was renovated and there wasn't much space. And the fluffier carpet presented issues when connecting the track and keeping it together. One day, Mum quietly said to me, "Why don't you build large tracks anymore?" And although I answered with the issues above, it did cut deeply. A few years passed. One year, the family got a table tennis table for Christmas, and a large one at that. We used it for a while, but the novelty soon wore off, and we put it to the side. It was too awkward to get it out all the time. One day, when thinking about Mum's comments on why I don't build large track layouts anymore and staring at all my Plarail and Tomy Trains things, I had an idea. I was almost certain Mum wouldn't go along with it, but I decided to bring it up to her anyway. "Mum, can I build a Tomy Train track on the ping pong table?" I asked. Her eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. She loved the idea a lot, and after finishing the dishes was very quick to help me set up the table that afternoon so I could build a track on it the next day. I built a few more layouts on it before Mum mentioned that she would like me to, this time around, set up the table under the kitchen window so that she could watch me build and run my trains. Mum always took an interest and supported me in whatever I was doing. She encouraged my Lego building and other toys I played with. Mum even bought her own Magic the Gathering cards a couple of years after I first started playing, and I had a couple of matches with her. I think she would be continuing to encouraging my Lego and Plarail hobbies or even my finger puppet collecting now. She would very likely be open and supportive of me being a furry too. Though video games, I'm sure she'd be alright with it, but she always tried to tell me I wasn't allowed to any more consoles in the house. That includes the Nintendo Switch. I don't remember exactly when it was, but one day a few years ago now, Mum said she had to go to the doctors for an ear infection. Dad took her. When they returned, they said that Mum might have to go into hospital, and didn't elaborate. I assumed it was still for her ear, though I wasn't exactly sure what they meant by that. If they had mentioned an operation, I had not heard of one at the time for ears. They said they were waiting on a call back. And if they got one, they had to go pretty quickly. I didn't think anything of it. Well, the call did come. Within the next couple of days, in fact. It sounded very urgent. Mum had to go back to the doctors as soon as possible. When they finally came home, Mum was getting changed. So I asked Dad directly, "So, what's the verdict, Dad? Is she going in the hospital for her ear infection?" He said yes. And she'd be going in for something else too. Mum had reported to her doctor feeling a bit off. She complained of feeling tired all the time and somewhat lethargic. Well, Mum and Dad called the rest of us, my sister, Nana, myself, into the living room and sat us all down. Then Mum told us. She had reported to her doctor of feeling a bit off. She complained of feeling tired all the time, somewhat lethargic. And she announced that she had acute myeloid leukemia, an aggressive, fast-growing cancer that affects the blood and bone marrow. I'll not go into the details. I'm sure you can look it up for more information yourself. The good news was that we caught it at one of its earlier stages. Survival rates were at about 35% in under 60-year-olds, which my mum was under at the time, but there were greater odds of survival at this stage. It wasn't long before Mum was taken in a hospital. Still remember the first time she went in. She was very brave and in good spirits. She even spotted us leaving on the walkway outside and shouted to us and waved enthusiastically from the window. I waved and smiled back. "You better watch out, leukemia." Mum was ready for a fight. Mum got through the first round of chemotherapy almost unscathed, still full of energy and raring to go. It was the second one that knocked her around a bit. She had to be given more platelets and white blood cells over and over again. Naturally, as she had more chemotherapy, her hair started to fall out. As soon as it started, Mum immediately called for her sister-in-law, her brother's wife, who was a hairdresser. She asked her to simply shave it all off, and so she had it all shaved off. It was many rounds of chemotherapy and bone marrow scans, not to mention so many months in the hospital. Then, we finally got some great news. They'd done another scan of her bone marrow, and they couldn't detect any of the leukemia anywhere. She'd done it. Mum had beaten leukemia. We knew the battle was over, but she hadn't won the war. She would have a much lower immune system from now on. Her hair would never grow back, and there was always a chance the leukemia could return. For a few months or so, Mum was able to stay at home. She kept herself and us in good spirits. Saw a few of my friends and family members again. I still couldn't believe it. She'd fought against cancer, an aggressive form of it at that, and had managed to pull through. And if that had been the case, she'd be here now, and I wouldn't be making this video. Fate has a funny way of messing with you sometimes. Mum still had to have bone marrow tests done upon occasion. They had all been showing up clear. Until one didn't. The leukemia was back for round 2. And boy, was it extremely angry. It had come back even more aggressively than before. Mum was straight back in the hospital with more chemotherapy treatments, more platelets, more white blood cells. This time around, the chemotherapy really knocked her around. She had no energy at all and was constantly asleep. To make matters worse, her body seemed to be somewhat rejecting the platelets and white blood cells she was being given. So eventually, the call was made. Mum was going to have to receive a full blood transfusion. Dad described this as she was going to have all of her blood drained out of her body and replaced. I believe, after checking online, that she was perhaps going to have a stem cell transplantation, but really it was either of these. Mum had to go on the waiting list. The waiting list was extremely long. Being the newest on the list, Mum was right down the bottom, and it would be months or even a whole year before she could undergo the procedure. And that's when leukemia revealed a very dirty trick. For it had invited a new friend to the fight. A nasty new friend called pneumonia. This infected Mum at some stage whilst she was at home during one of her off times whilst undergoing treatment for round 2 of the leukemia. She complained of constantly feeling cold as well as tired, and she went back in the hospital. Mum grew weaker and weaker. After a lot of persuading by my aunt, the same one who cut Mum's hair, after holding it back for at least a few days, Dad finally sat my sister and I down at the table. There wasn't anything more they could do. She was going to die. She had put up one hell of a fantastic fight for all to see, but she was exhausted. This fight was now over. I was seeing a psychologist at the time, and one thing he told me stuck with me badly when I told him about Mum's condition. You should go and see her, because you never know when the time may come. I took his words to heart so intensely that after my appointment that day, I went directly to the hospital to see Mum. The lights were turned off, and Mum was asleep. I slipped inside. I had to touch her hand to let her know I was there, and then sat down in the chair quietly, let her sleep. I opened my 3DS and played for a bit. After about 20 minutes or so, I finally plucked up some courage. I closed my 3DS, walked over to her, sat down in the chair next to her bed, and grabbed her hand. She noticed me, and I told her, "You're the best mum in the world." She very quietly replied, "And you're the best son in the world." I smiled. She was wrong. I knew she was wrong. But I wasn't going to correct her. I didn't say much more. Just sat there, holding her hand. After a while, I said goodbye to her, and couldn't help but keep looking back as I left the room. Somehow, I think I had a feeling I wouldn't be back. So it was. Dad went into the hospital either that night or the next day, and stayed there. He said he would stay at the hospital till Mum passed. And he did. He stayed all weekend. And on Monday morning, on the 8th of April 2016, the very day I was, to my knowledge anyway, but that's a story for another time, supposed to start my new job, and I heard Dad open the door to his bedroom. I already knew what it meant. He didn't have to say anything. Heck, all he had to do, really, was open the door. "Your mum passed away." I asked. He said she went peacefully in her sleep, sometime between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. He told me I didn't have to go into work. To this day, I still don't know why or how I did. Luckily I did though, because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten the job. But again, that's a story for another time. I somehow wrote a eulogy for her, and I endeavored to read it, even as Dad decided he wouldn't be able to read his own. And so I did. I did pretty well, I thought, right up until I hit something. If you remember my trailer earlier in the year, you'll remember a cutscene I played right at the end of the video. This cutscene was fresh in my mind. I had finished my 3rd ever Let's Play, which was of Ratchet & Clank, in May. I decided to include the final lines of the cutscene right at the end of Mum's eulogy, slightly changing it so it fitted a little better. Those lines were,
I know.
I'll try to make you
I
proud,
will try
Mum.
to make you proud, Mom.
And I know what you'll say to that. You already have. To this day, I can't even think about the cutscene, all those words, without tearing up. I wanted to talk about it so badly when we finally got to it this year whilst playing through the first game from my Road to Rift Apart series. But with my grandma in hospital, I never quite got to talk about it properly, and I was quite upset about it the morning afterwards, as I never got to give it the spotlight I wanted to. This scene now means so much to me. A promise. When Grandma went in the hospital earlier this year, she went to the same hospital my mum was in. I cannot describe the feeling I had as I entered the car park, walked down the pathway to the entrance, or even walking through the hospital. It was all too familiar, but not in a pleasant way. And I couldn't help but looking at the window again. "10 years have passed now, and I find it somewhat hard to go any longer than a couple of weeks without thinking about Mum at least once. Usually it's a little more often, and then the thoughts start. The feeling of not living up to what I promised her 10 years ago. Even all this time, I still wish that things were different, that I got more time, or that it had been me, not her. She mattered more to everyone than I did. I would have traded places with her in a heartbeat. But I'm here, and she's not. And I can't change that. So I have to keep going on for her. Because she taught me to never give up. Even when life decides it wants to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you, there is always something worth fighting for. I promise. I'll try to make you proud, Mum. And I know what you'll say. You already have.